Okay, so Leonard Boswell's lawsuit. I've got an update on that, a little one. I've also got a personal reflection on my trip to Florida and what I saw at a plantation in terms of the effect slavery has had on this country. I want to talk about Branstad's list of accomplishments, and we got a whole bunch more to cover, folks, here today on the Fallon Forum.
Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome to the Fallon Forum today, folks. That's Brother Trucker kicking us off. I also want to thank Physicians for Social Responsibility and the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club for sponsoring the Fallon Forum. And I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I want to encourage all of my listeners today this is a great day to give me a call because my guest unfortunately had to cancel. That happens. And I'm wide open. I got a bunch of stuff I want to cover, but I'm also absolutely willing to have your viewpoints on these subjects or any subject you think should be discussed. And, you know, if you only let Frank from Des Moines call, then, folks, I'm going to have to take Frank from Des Moines' call. So, 244-0077, 244-0077. A quick reminder, too, about the upcoming Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show. I'm really looking forward to this because Lee Camp is, I think, a sensational comedian and a very pointed activist, and he combines those things in a in a way that can make you laugh and think deeply at the same time. So that'll be this coming Sunday, the 13th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at House of Bricks in the East Village. And again, tickets can be purchased in advance at tickly.co. That's TIKLY.co. Just click down to the appropriate event. And again, I think we're going to have a good crowd. I hope so. It sounds like we've got a good buzz going on it. Should be a lot of fun. Local comedians as well. We got Dan Umtham, Scott Vermulm, and Colin Ryan. And again, Andy Fleming with Brother Trucker will be kicking the evening off. So take a couple hours out to come have a good time and support a cause, because this will help generate revenue for me to help fund my lawsuit. I don't have a personal savings account I can dip into, or a former campaign account like Leonard Boswell can dip into. So anyway, I just got done this morning with a public hearing. A hearing at the Polk County Courthouse on the subject of this lawsuit. We filed a counter after Boswell decided to sue me for, he said, defamation of character. I said, well, your people offered me a job. Two different people offered me a job if I wouldn't run. I've been saying that since 2008 when it happened. I guess I said it loud enough back in October last year where it warranted a response. Again, I was surprised to get a lawsuit thrown at me. We responded by saying that the lawsuit was essentially frivolous. It was an attempt to try to distract attention from the issues being addressed, and also a way to kind of try to silence me. And I still think that's a legitimate concern. So we had a hearing on that today because Boswell's people want to dismiss my claim that the lawsuit was filed, frivolously. So we'll see where that goes. Again, we felt good about the conversation. Who knows where it'll go? We'll know within 60 days. So this thing just keeps dragging on, and I've got to defend myself in the process. So I wish it would just go away, to be honest with you. And I'm actually surprised that Boswell doesn't just wish it would go away as well. They've actually gone a step further now and are requesting what's called discovery. Lots of things they want. A list of about 50 things that they're looking for from me. I mean, I'm happy to provide any facts and information I can, but I got a kick out of this one, and I'm presuming this is a typo. One item they're looking for is each and every email you, meaning me, you received in response to your emails alleging you offered Boswell a job. Okay, they had that wrong, actually, and I think they probably just didn't know that. But, sometimes typos can be a great source of humor when all else fails. So I guess I'd like to offer Leonard Boswell a job to guest host for me on this show sometime. Open invitation, Leonard, whenever you're ready. Come on in. I will pay you as minimally as I get paid to do it. Okay, folks, on to other matters. We got a lot to talk about today. And again, there's plenty of open time. If you want to be a part of this conversation, give me a shout at 244-0077 or toll-free 855-244-0077. And again, I see I've got one caller. I see it's Frank from Des Moines. Frank, I will take your call, but I want to give people a chance to call in as well. So let's first of all, I got to share this personal reflection with you. You know that I went down to Florida on Megabus over the holidays. Great trip. I enjoyed the Megabus trip a lot. Met some interesting people and had a wonderful Christmas break with my kids. My son lives in Jacksonville when he's not out on a boat as a merchant marine hauling freight. So we gathered there and had a wonderful time and got to take in some history as well. Went to St. Augustine, never been there before, and went to a place called Kingsley Plantation. I'd never been to a plantation. I'd never seen slave huts. This was an eye-opening experience, and this is a picture of the actual plantation itself, which you can see is fairly palatial. This is a view of some of the slave huts. And this is a picture of them from back in the, I think, late 1800s. This is when they were still inhabited. Again, the story, it just, well, one more shot here, Maddie. Oh, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. It's just, you think about this. I mean, people forcibly brought here from Africa. I mean, they traveled in ships that took over a month across the ocean. They weren't moving around on deck. This wasn't a cruise ship. They were forcibly locked, chained in the bottom of this boat. They were just laying there the whole time, laying there in their own filth. Just incredible that some element of humanity can allow this to happen. Just incredible to me to see the pictures of that and to see the conditions in which these slaves lived. You know, I mean, sure, yeah, being a slave in the U.S. was probably a lot better than being chained in the bottom of a boat. But come on, the conditions once they got here were horrible. This particular plantation was on a mosquito-infested island, and it's now reverted to forest, which looked pretty nice to me, to be honest with you. But I mean, this is a horrible life, a horrible chapter of our history. And every time I think, well, maybe there's no hope for humanity, I look and I think, well, gosh, we've gone from the days when an entire race of people were committed to slavery to having the first African-American president in our history. So I think, yeah, and again, you know that I'm no solid, constant cheerleader for President Obama, but I think, well, we have made some progress because when you see the story of slavery up close, when you see the opulence where the white owners lived, and when you see the horrible conditions that the mass of slaves needed to were consigned to, it's a shocking chapter of our history, and one that, again, I think we should be happy that we have moved not entirely beyond. Let's remember, the battle is not over. There's still plenty of racism and bigotry in this country, but we have made a lot of progress, and we should be grateful for that. Okay, speaking of progress, or lack thereof in this case, Governor Terry Branstad assessing his performance, giving himself an incomplete grade. Okay, anytime you get an incomplete grade, that's really not that good. I know he's saying that, well, I'm only half done with my work. I've got 2 more years to finish my program. But anyway, you cut it. An incomplete grade is not a good thing. And if you're the one, if you're the one giving yourself an incomplete grade, I've got some real questions as to whether or not a more objective teacher would grant you a much less impressive performance review. And as I look at the Branstad promise and the Branstad record, I'm thinking we're looking somewhere more along the lines of a failing grade. Okay, the one that I really love is the goal of 200,000 new jobs. Now, people don't remember maybe, but Branstad's been around as he's been governor for longer than many people in this state have been alive. And years ago, he had the goal of, and I got a kick out of this one. One of his stated campaign goals was population growth in every county. And I don't know how you do that from government seat. What do you do? You don't personally take responsibility for trying to repopulate the state? I don't know. I get all sorts of humorous possibilities come to mind, none of which I should probably talk in any depth about on the show. But when you committed yourself to increasing the population in every county, you've got your work cut out for you, either Hercules style or or I don't know what. Of course, needless to say, that goal was an abject failure. And but politicians are not held accountable. They make these ridiculous promises. They don't even come close to being able to satisfy them, and yet they aren't held accountable. I mean, here's Branstad being elected again for a 5th term, and then they go on and make more promises that they can't keep. Okay, and the most phenomenal one to me is the goal of 200,000 new jobs. Okay, understand this is a promise being made by a Republican governor, the party that almost always insists that government doesn't create jobs. That I built that. Remember the slogan from the presidential campaign? I built that. I'm a self-made man. This is my self-made business. We can have another conversation about that. But this is the party that believes, or says it believes, that the private sector creates jobs. So Branstad, though, he has a goal of somehow, as governor in the public sector, creating 200,000 new private sector jobs. Okay? And I love what his aides have said on this. And this is a quote from a recent story in the Register. Quote, exactly, I love that, exactly 100,000 jobs have been added in Iowa from January 2011 through November 2012, his aides said. Now, anytime you hear a political hack saying exactly, and then throwing a number after it, you should be suspect, especially if that number ends in 3 zeros. Okay, so even assuming that somewhere in the vicinity of 100,000 jobs have been, quote, added. Here's the reality check provided to us by David Swenson, professor of economics at Iowa State University. Branstad counts only jobs created and not jobs lost. So David Swenson says that's like counting only the deposits you make into your bank account and not the withdrawals. Okay, everyone would be rich with accounting like that, says Swenson. Okay, so by the most objective measure, and again, I haven't studied this to find out where it comes from, but I think the folks in the economics department at Iowa State University do a pretty good job. By the most objective measure, again, measuring jobs coming in and going out, Iowa has added about 28,000 jobs. Again, Iowa has added 28,000 jobs. I mean, I created one. I'd love to create, actually, I've created 1.5. Maddie, half a job. Anyway, I'd love to create a few more if I can continue to grow this program. But I'm not going to thank Governor Branstad. I'm not going to thank anybody in government, Democrat or Republican. You know, yeah, I created this job, okay? I know I did it also using the internet, getting to work by public streets on my bike. I know that it isn't just my work. It is public investments in infrastructure that make it possible to create jobs. But yeah, there's no way Governor Branstad is taking credit for my job or my job and a half. And yet he continues to insist. Again, there's another good quote on this. This one's from Matt Sinovic. Matt has been a guest on the show. He's with Progress, Iowa. His quote is, Governor Branstad needs to stop deceiving Iowans. Boom. Nailed the point, Matt. Thank you. Using his phony math, if I were hired 3 times and laid off 3 times in the same year, he would get to take credit for creating 3 jobs. Anyone with an elementary school education knows that's not how math works. All right, so plenty of other ways in which Governor Branstad's actual record does not stand up with his campaign promises. And I want to talk more about those, but I've babbled enough, and I want to go to our phone lines. Maddie, I can't pull up the call screen today, so let me know who we got on what line.
We have Katie Allen on line 2. She just called in. She's talking job creation. And then we have Frank on line 1. He wants to talk death penalty and guns. Well,
hang on to your horses there, Frank. We're going to get to guns and the death penalty, and you're going to be in you're going to be in talk show heaven. But let's go first to Katie. Katie, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ed. Good afternoon. Hey, I just wanted to make a comment in regard to our governor's job creation. And I think it's important that when anyone makes a suggestion, particularly a politician, that they're going to create jobs, that we ask what kind of jobs. And so when the governor's lackey made mention of the jobs that they created, what kind of jobs are we talking about? Are we talking about jobs at Walmart that barely pay minimum wage and no benefits? Yeah. Or are we talking jobs that somebody can actually make a living at and support their families?
Well, it's a really, really good question, Katie. And this reminds me of the other question we should be asking. How much does it, when government actually gets involved in job creation, what does it cost the taxpayers? Look at the Egyptian-owned fertilizer plant in southeast Iowa, Orascom. $250 million in public subsidies for one company. That's $1.5 million per job. They're only creating, I think, 165 jobs. It's about $1.5 million per job. So yeah, in addition to your excellent question, what kind of jobs are being created? Even when we might be creating a job that pays $40,000 or $50,000 a year, what kind of public investment is going into that job? Excellent questions.
That brings to mind also, Ed, that in those situations where communities have provided free infrastructure, free tax credits, et cetera, like you're alluding to here, Ed, then, the community comes back and says, well, now you need to stay in our community for X number of years providing these jobs. And how many of these companies basically say, okay, thanks for everything.
It happens all the time.
After 5 years.
It happens all the time.
Shame.
Yeah. Maytag in Newton landed a bunch of public subsidies only to bail out shortly thereafter. Mm-hmm. I've seen it happen. Well, I mean, a couple of years ago, people are going to probably forget this, but Wells Fargo was cited for failing to retain the 2,000 jobs it promised to create with the $84 million plus in public handouts it received back in the early 2000s. Well, you know, the Economic Development Department, and especially, and even under Branstad, it's gotten even more. It's become even more of a lapdog. It's not there. There's no bark or bite to it at all. It's not really enforcing these agreements very well. It's all. I don't even know how Branstad can get away with arguing that with any credibility at all. So.
Yeah, I think it's a crying shame, and I think it's a good point that you bring up that, you know, we're aware of these things, and while I didn't vote for the guy in the first place, so far I have no reason to vote for him when he comes up for re-election if he decides to go that route.
We'll see if he does. Maybe he won't. Katie, thank you so much for the call.
Thank you, Ed.
All right.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Bye now.
I do want to talk about a couple more of Governor Branstad's promises and the results, the reality check, as the Des Moines Register talks about it. I also want to cover the issue of the felons voting rights issue. And yeah, we will get to the death penalty. We will get to guns. You're welcome to join the conversation, folks, at 244-0077, 244-0077, or toll free 855-244-0077. And I want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our program. Gateway, of course, what I like to call our neighborhood grocery store. They're at 20th and Woodland in Sherman Hill. And they've got the complete line of grocery products, and a lot of it from local sources. High quality stuff at, in my opinion, mostly at affordable prices. And also a fantastic cafe. I love to go to their cafe for breakfast or brunch on a Sunday morning, sit by the fire, read the paper. But they've also got lunch and dinner, and I had dinner there the other night, excellent dinner. And, of course, also the catering service. So, folks, check them out. Support local businesses. Keep that money in our economy, in our community. Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland. I'll be back in a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 1 of WebcastOneLive.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live, and thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together, and we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks for sticking around for segment 2 of the Fallon Forum. I want to thank Babers Neighbors for kicking off the section with that tune, Ode to Jones. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio from which we conduct this program. And, of course, the ads you just heard are to support Webcast One Live. We kind of divide up the time between their sponsors and the Fallon Forum sponsors. I want to thank Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions for sponsoring this segment of our show. And I want to encourage you to give me a shout, 244-0077, 244-0077 if you want to join the conversation. Also want to take a second to invite you to Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter. This is the comedy show coming up this Sunday at House of Bricks from 7 to 9 p.m. to keep me out of the big house. Anyway, we'll talk more about that later. But I want to tell you a few more things, a few more thoughts I want to share with you on Branstad and his promises and his record of delivery. And then I'll go back to my phone lines. Let's see. Okay. First place to start. Branstad has said Iowa's income, one of his goals, his promises is 25% increase in Iowa household incomes. Now, we have heard that before. Branstad made very similar promises in years past. And again, I never fails to amaze me that Republicans who say government doesn't create jobs can somehow still make these ridiculous promises. I mean, promises that no one in their right mind would think make any sense at all, but it makes a good soundbite in a campaign. Again, Democrats do this stuff as well, of course, but this is Branstad and saying, and he claims Iowa's incomes grew at the second fastest rate in the country, up nearly 7%. That's again from Branstad's aides. Okay. Reality check, according to the piece in the Des Moines Register. The reason for that increase, that 7% increase, it was price increases for corn, soybeans, hogs, and cattle pushed up. That pushed up incomes, but for who? Well, predominantly for a very concentrated group of livestock and crop producers. So the increase in non-farm income didn't rank as well. That came in about 23rd nationally. Again, right smack in the middle of the 50 states. So, for him to claim that they've made this great progress, even if you were somehow to argue that 7% growth was what we actually saw, that's not that good. If your goal is 25% and you want to do that in the course of 4 years, we're halfway there. You should be at 12.5%. Sorry, that's my math. And again, what Branstad's talking about is basically for corn, soybean, hog, and cattle producers. And that was probably, again, more an accident of just things just coming together for agriculture in those couple of years. Less so last year, of course, than the year before. Okay, so Branstad also talks about reducing the size of government, the cost of government. What he's looking at is under the Culver administration, state government received a bunch of federal stimulus money. Okay, and so those are one-time dollars spent for specific purposes, flood relief in Cedar Rapids. Some of it, by the way, was corrupted to be used for that fertilizer plant in southeast Iowa. So you have all these examples of how that money was spent, but it's one-time money. You should not count it in your budget. It's like it's like you get a Christmas gift. Somebody gives you, your rich, crazy aunt gives you $500 for Christmas. You should not consider that your income increased by $500 this year over last year. Just take the crazy aunt's money and go spend it somewhere fast, okay? But, so Branstad is, again, arguing that he's reduced the size of government. No, the stimulus money, the one-time money went away, was spent. Anyway, He also says that, again, his covenant is to provide the best schools in the nation. And he says, quote, reforms were passed in the last session that started schools on a path to achieve this goal. Well, that didn't stop Iowa schools from getting an F from Students First or a C from Education Week, their latest report card. We'll see what happens with that. It just goes on and on. You look at his the sound bites, of course. You can make the sound bites sound really sharp and pleasant, but when push comes to shove, Branson's list of accomplishments is really I'll say this again. I served in the legislature with Branson as governor. I would meet him once in a while. Not often. He was not all that available. But I'd meet him once in a while. We certainly had a lot more interaction behind the scenes with some of the stuff going on. And my impression of him as governor back then was primarily he was interested in the next campaign. He was thinking more about ribbon cutting, baby kissing, marching in parades, that sort of thing, proclamations. This time he's doing a lot more of actually governing, and he's not good at it. It ain't working out real well. Again, you've got to fudge the numbers and swing those sound bites a little bit if you want to have any kind of favorable spin on this track record. But for people who are discerning and paying attention, it doesn't look real good. All right, let's go to our phone lines with Frank from Des Moines. Hello, Frank. Welcome to the program.
Well, welcome back, Ed.
Thank you.
That global warming thing, I'm believing in it.
Well, I'm glad we finally made a believer out of you.
You left and it was warm, and you come back and it's cold.
Well, see, you didn't know that it's not carbon that causes climate change. It's me. I got to be in prison for that, Frank.
Listen, apparently Branstad is hiring some of Obama's unemployed accountants, huh?
Well, that's good because Obama's hiring some of the people who worked in the Bush administration. It's all working out. Politicians.
I think that accounting activities is nonpartisan on both sides of the aisle. People that can't seem to keep from fudging the books.
Maybe.
Well, Obama's job numbers isn't much better. I mean, it's like the guy that goes out to Prairie Meadows and comes home and tells you how much he wins, but he never tells you how much he loses.
That is also a very good analogy, and I think it applies very, very precisely to what Branstad is claiming on job growth.
And then the second thing I want to mention to you about your buddy Leonard, I don't know that I'd hire him to clean my toilets.
Are your toilets dirty again, Frank?
No.
You should be able to do that yourself by now. You're my age, right? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, actually,
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a lesson. I'll give you Toilet 101.
Eat out of mine, but,
what?
You could probably eat out of mine. They're so clean, but
is that if we were an FCC station, Maddie, would that be allowed? Can you say that on the air? I mean, he didn't actually say a bad word, but talk about.
I think he could say it, but I'm not sure that it's advice that anyone ought to take.
Frank, remind me never to accept an invitation to come to your house for dinner.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you about Boswell. Not him in particular, but it's number one. If he would have won, the lawsuit would have went away.
I was surprised it didn't go away anyhow, but yeah.
But the fact that he lost, it's sour grapes. But it speaks to a larger point of the entitlement mentality in this country. People think they're entitled to things from their government, and politicians believe they're entitled to a job. And Leonard thinks he should apparently kick the bucket in office and have to be carried out in a pine box, and that you just disrupted his program. So now he's very upset.
I really didn't disrupt it that much. Tom Latham was a more serious disruption.
Well, yes, but
I tried.
You jumped on the bandwagon to vote for Latham because...
No, I didn't say vote for Latham. I never said that.
I think you did.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not, Frank. You are totally either forgetful or misrepresenting history badly.
You were saying you were encouraging people that a extra loss in the House wouldn't be no big deal.
And I was right on that. It wasn't. But I was encouraging people to think 2014. Think 2014, right in Frank County. Somebody who would be an excellent congressman who could actually take on Tom Latham. A distinction, not just on issues, but on geographic basis.
Somebody to take on Latham the next time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you have to think strategically about that.
By de facto, is it go vote for Latham because we need Boswell out?
No.
Okay. And then
I don't buy the argument that just because you vote against just to say that you're supporting this person because you're not voting for somebody else. I've never bought that, and I certainly wouldn't buy it in this case.
So are you willing to say who you voted for, Latham or Boswell?
No, I told you who I voted for. I told people who I was going to vote for right up front. I wrote in Frank County.
Okay. Well, then
Who'd you vote for?
I voted for Latham.
I figured as much.
But the other thing is, last time I checked, Iowa still holds the House of Representatives and Senate, right? So Grandstall's still up there blocking a lot.
No. Iowa Democrats hold the Iowa Senate. Republicans hold the Iowa House.
Okay. Well, now what house is Grandstall part of?
Senate.
And Democrats hold that, right?
Yes, barely.
Okay. So everything that Brandstamp wants to do has to get past Grandstall, right?
Yeah, or Republicans in the Senate, under Bill Dix's leadership, have to find a way to peel off some Democrats to move that priority along.
Can you lay what's going on with Brandstamp totally at his feet, or do you lay a little bit of it at the Senate's feet?
No, because Grandstall and other senators make their own promises to their constituents. Branstad made promises to us, and I think he's doing a horrible job at keeping them, and an almost laughable job at trying to create some kind of spin that looks like it's...
Here's the double standard, though, Ed. Up in D.C., without trying to get into the political stuff too much, because I could care less at this point, but Harry Reid and some of those guys up there are constantly blaming the obstacles that the Republicans are throwing out, why we can't get more done up here. So the same thing would hold true in local government, correct?
Not necessarily. You have a very different situation in how the Senate works at the federal level than you do here in Iowa. You really can't. It's really apples and oranges.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't pay a lot of attention to what goes on in the Iowa
And
House.
That's why you need me, Frank.
Well, that's right. That's why I tune in to find out what's going on in Ned's world.
All right. Well, so you just take my word on things from now on, right? For example, I'm going to tell you the death penalty is not going anywhere this year.
Well, why not?
Well, why not? Because first of all, it shouldn't. It's horrible policy. It's ridiculously expensive. Innocent people tend to be executed on a regular basis. It's applied in a racially biased manner, and it doesn't. Most important, it doesn't deter crime. Republicans actually saw that back in 1997. When I was in the House in '97?
Was there any more innocent victim, man, crucified, put to death by the death penalty than Jesus Christ?
Probably not. Okay, and for that reason alone, you should probably be against the death penalty, Frank.
And there was two thieves hanging on the cross next to him who deserved it, and he didn't. He didn't commute their sentences, and he didn't commute his own.
All right, and now you're losing me because you're getting into religion, which I'm as interested in religion as, maybe someday I'll start a religious talk show, but this one's a political one.
Well, let me ask you a question, if you can answer this. Tell me what category you fall into. Some people study the Bible or Scripture to disprove it. Some people study the Bible and Scripture as like mere abstract theory that they can, be educated on, speak on. Then there's some people that, because it has the power to transform lives. Where are you in that?
The latter.
Transform lives?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if the Lord was on the cross, getting the most severe penalty that society could offer, and he didn't excuse himself from that penalty, doesn't that speak to the fact that it may be something necessary we need?
No. Gosh, Frank, that's a really bizarre twist. Again, back to the actual policy of it, minus the thoughts that you and I may have as Christians. From a policy point of view, it makes no sense. And I was going to tell you how we got started on this. I was going to tell you why I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Well, go ahead.
And you kind of hinted at that earlier without really referencing this issue. Grandstall. You might have people in the Iowa House. Actually, though, even the Iowa House might have a hard time passing the death penalty. When the House had a Republican majority of, I think, 63 or 4 members, when I was in there in the mid-1990s, they only got 53 votes out of their own caucus for the death penalty. So there are plenty of Republicans who see, in some cases, they understand it's bad policy in terms of the cost and the accidents that happen when you execute innocent people. But in some cases, there are folks who are very religious, like yourself, who are anti-abortion, who are also anti-death penalty because they see that as consistent. The Catholic Church is very much in that line of theological and policy bent. So, I think even if the Senate was Republican, I don't think you'd see a death penalty bill pass the Iowa legislature. It would be close. But again, remember, back in 1997, a House that had a vast Republican majority, Senate was Republican, Branstad was in office, and the death penalty was still defeated. Partly, largely because you saw a tremendous coalition of churches that felt it was inappropriate.
Is there any crime or any series of crimes that any human being could commit that you would, support the death penalty for that particular person?
No, not even for somebody as grotesque as Adolf Hitler. If Hitler had been captured, I would much rather see him rot in prison than to be executed. First of all, I think we sent a stronger message that way. Gives him time to ponder, repent, and to, in a very limited sense, pay back for his crimes.
You believe in mercy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think the Bible is emphatically in belief of mercy.
So how is rotting in prison and suffering on the part of Hitler?
Okay, maybe that was a bad choice of words. Again, they used to be called penitentiaries because we were supposed to be there for penance.
Okay, but you're still avoiding the question.
No.
Death is mercy.
No, death is death.
Because if somebody is so bent on evil and you're constraining them from doing evil, they're miserable. So if you put them out of their misery, they're no longer miserable, correct?
Yeah, but that shouldn't be human. That's not your choice or mine to make. That's theirs and God's.
Has to come together on these collective tough issues, and we can't model collie people in the world who wants to run around shooting kids in little schools. And we don't say nothing about the puddles of blood that Quentin Tarantino leaves in every film. We don't say nothing about...
Interesting, actually, because I'm going to talk about that on Tuesday. And you and I are probably going to agree when I have a guest on who is going to argue that media violence is not an issue. I think you and I will agree.
Okay,
Frank, I've got to go to a break.
Okay, all right.
I appreciate the conversation.
You're welcome.
Maybe I'll see you at Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter, hey?
Possibly, I'm not sure.
All right, well, yeah, you'll be surrounded by a lot of... crazy progressive types. It might be a little overwhelming.
I'm sure.
Hey, I went to a Promise Keepers meeting once just to see what that was like. There's no reason you can't stick your head into a den of liberals for a night.
I did. I came down to your drinking liberally, and
but that wasn't a den. That was an establishment. All right. Yeah, I got to run to a break, Frank. Thanks for calling. Folks, 244-0077. Join the conversation here online. I'll take Ron's call when we come back from a break. I do want to thank Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions, folks. If you have any doubt at all that your energy use might be improved, if you have any thought that it might be improved, give Tim a shout at 802-2801. 802-2801. The audit is free. The problems he identifies are mostly something he can fix. Again, and oftentimes that work comes with a rebate. But at any rate, the audit is free. You ought to at least know what's going on, know how you can save money and reduce your carbon footprint. So give Tim a shout at 802-2801. That's ReynoldsEnergySolutions.com. I'll be back in a few minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey folks, it's Ed Fallon. I want to tell you about saving energy and saving money. Tim Reynolds with Reynolds Energy Solutions will give you a comprehensive energy audit that will cost you nothing. And Tim will identify the many ways in which you can reduce energy use while saving money. Now, I had Tim over for an audit last month, and I was amazed, I tell you, at how much energy was going through the roof, out the windows, the back door. You get it. So before the cold winds of winter really blow hard, give Tim a call at 802-2801. That's 802-2801.
I'm a burrito.
I'm a fighting burrito, full of fresh ingredients prepared before your very eyes.
I don't have eyes.
I have over 28 options and 268 million combinations, including Rizzo for vegetarians.
I can take my meat off and call myself vegetarian.
Put that back on. The Fighting Burrito is locally owned.
I'm owned by some big corporation somewhere. Say, you want to go on a date?
No thanks. I'm seeing a quesadilla.
The Fighting Burrito online, fightingburrito.com. Join the fight.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano, and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
Wow, some wedding.
Yeah, I've never seen a bride in coveralls.
Right, and skipping down the aisle to accordion music.
Not to mention the reception. That wedding cake was a freaking fruit cake.
It's your wedding. Don't leave anything to chance. Diana's Wedding Cakes. Using only the finest, freshest ingredients with free on-time delivery and setup. Choose one of Diana's custom designs or create your own. Call Diana's Wedding Cakes, 641-275-9279. That's 641-275-9279.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
You know, it's amazing how fast the time goes and how you don't even begin to get covered what you want to talk about. Hey, that's Pumptown, folks, bringing us back with their tuned bicycle. I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. I do want to talk a little bit about the voting rights for former felons. I want to talk about Joe Biden on gun control, and also want to talk about the pollution control plan that seems to be going nowhere. And we've got a wacky conspiracy theory coming up around the whole Newtown Sandy Hook massacre. 244-0077, the number to call to join the conversation. That's, again, 244-0077. I do want to just, before I go to the phone lines and welcome Ron to the conversation, I want to reference the breaking news this week about, or yesterday, I guess, today, about Biden. He is clashing with the NRA, good for him, over gun control proposals. Biden says that universal background checks seem to be getting a lot of support. He added, quote, among my former colleagues in the U.S. Senate who have been pretty universally opposed to any restrictions on gun ownership or on what type of weapons can be purchased, I have never quite heard as much talk about the need to do something about high-capacity magazines as I have heard spontaneously from every group I have met with so far. That's Joe Biden referencing his conversations with folks at the U.S. Senate and in the U.S. House. He also, notably, did not mention reinstituting the assault weapons ban, which expired in 2004. That is unfortunate and seems to me to be a big part of the conversation we need to have. Let's go to our phone lines and welcome Ron to the show. Hello, Ron. How are you?
How you doing, Ed?
Good.
Oh, it's always is interesting me when people want to justify violence and they invoke the Bible, and they seem to miss the part that the entire Bible is a polemic against violence.
The entire Bible, Old and New Testament?
And the entire Bible is a polemic against violence.
Now, there's plenty of violence in the Old Testament.
Because there's plenty of violence in the world. The Bible talks about the world.
Okay.
The world as it is. But the Bible is a polemic against the goodness of violence. And argues that violence is ultimately futile. And we don't do violence. Violence does us.
Okay.
And I'm always fascinated when it's invoked as, oh, if we're not violent, we're somehow singing against God.
Okay.
That has never been in traditional Christianity. That has never been a valid argument. The closest was Saint Augustine, who, whether you be a Protestant or a Catholic, Saint Augustine invented your form of Christianity, who came out with the expression, well, I suppose the state ought to have capital punishment on the books, but I shouldn't do it.
Okay, so relate your thoughts on the actual debate going on right now on gun violence. I mean, obviously, guns. The Bible predates the existence of guns, but I mean, we have quite a conversation. Now, we got folks who feel that we ought to focus on mental health treatment, folks who feel we ought to focus on eliminating the availability of assault weapons and related issues, and others who feel that violence in the media is a key part of the problem. You know, where do you stand on this?
Except that Hollywood is exports to countries around the world, and people around the world consume Hollywood product, including violent product, and they don't nearly have as much violence as we have in the United States. I mean, people in Canada play the same video games that people in the U.S. do. All right.
So why is that? Why does violence in the media, in video games, elsewhere, have more impact on the culture here than elsewhere, in your opinion?
I think that, and I think this is a recent vintage. I think particularly as we've become a post-Christian society, what's reasserted itself as kind of a sneaky little stealth religion is the cult of violence, that you get things done through violence, that it's good versus evil. And
but why is that any more prominent in this country than elsewhere?
I don't know. I mean, is it because of that we celebrate competition? Is it because we're always supposed to get out ahead of our neighbor who is our competitor? And you know, a bit of violence kind of does that for you. I mean,
well, I'm not
sure. If you're talking about, for example, capital punishment, who actually gets capital punishment applied to them?
Who gets capitally punished?
Yeah, who are the people who actually get put in the chair, get strapped down to the table?
It's disproportionately minorities and the poor.
Right, because it's a way to keep the poor in their place. All right, it's a way. It's something to hold over the poor.
I'm able to subscribe to cynicism on a number of levels and often in many circumstances, but I'm not sure I could possibly be that cynical, Ron.
Well, I'll work with you, and I'll get you there.
All right. Well, yeah, you work on me.
but I don't know. It's like, where is capital punishment most popular? It's popular in the South. Why does capital punishment have a deep and abiding heritage in the South? Let me see. Did they have a population they needed to keep under control? Oh, right. Wait a minute. You talked about that earlier.
I did.
And what they did that both through judicial means, by legitimate conviction. Oh, I want to put legitimate, by the way, in quotation marks.
Sure.
By conviction, execution, and then by
the occasional lynching.
The occasional lynching, as to make a further example.
Right.
That this is how things are done. And now, it's interesting, you know, people talk about, in non-slave states, a lot of people talk tough about capital punishment, but you know what? More often than not, when it comes right down to it, very few people are actually executed, because you're not going to...
But even one is a tragedy, in my opinion, especially if that one is an innocent person, But
the bottom line is, we don't easily execute someone we can regard as our peer. One of the reasons I think that
very few corporate criminals get executed. Not that we regard them as our peer.
Or very few white people wind up in that situation. The people most likely to wind up on death row and actually wind up being executed, unless they're like horrendous, I mean, Timothy McVeigh level monsters, are usually people we don't readily identify with, because human beings have a hard time putting other human beings to death. So therefore, we have to regard whoever we're putting to death as not a human being like us.
So we kind of started this thread on the question of media violence, but I started this segment on the question of gun violence and the vice president's leadership on trying to craft a legislative solution at the federal level to address the tragedy at Sandy Hook, which by the way, I'm assuming, I know you're from that area, that part of the country.
Yeah.
I'm assuming Newtown is not all that far from where you grew up.
Well, it isn't so far from your stomping grounds either, right?
Well, yeah, I did some stomping up in northern Massachusetts, yeah.
for one thing, we're not going to get anywhere because what's being played here is the interpretation of the Second Amendment. And as long as, and this is actually a recent thing, right? As long as the Second Amendment is interpreted to say every dingaling who has a mental health problem has a right to carry a loaded weapon, we're not really going to get off that.
Well, the Second Amendment, as came up in discussion last night, references a well-maintained militia.
I'll put it out there. I'll tell you what I think the Second Amendment is about. It's your right to serve in your community's militia and bring your own gun because we're not going to supply it to you.
Well, hey, Ron, I got to run, but let me ask you one quick question. I got a few more things I want to touch on real quick, but one quick question. Here's what interests me. I understand why Biden is taking leadership on this, both in terms of the policy, because this is something he's good at, and he has good relations in Congress, and because he may be a candidate for president. And I understand why he's looking at background checks and why he's looking at the high-capacity magazine issue. What disturbs me is that even though we had in place an assault weapons ban that lasted for 10 years through 2004, that does not seem to be on the table. Do you have a thought on why?
Well, I think it's typical Obama administration, give or take. And I don't know why they bother doing that because they never get anything substantial in return. They just always want to look like reasonable with their nominal opponents, but their opponents never see fit to offer the same in return.
But I mean, why is it? It's when you've got a tax break that the Bush administration put into place, it's very, very hard to repeal that tax break. When it comes to an assault weapons ban, letting that slide was easy.
Well,
I would like to think that this tragedy is so horrific that it would be easy to put it back in place.
Here's the question. By what stretch of the imagination should regular people who have no use for such a weapon, even in home defense, okay, why should ordinary citizens be allowed to have assault weapons anyway? I mean, is there
I don't get that.
Is there a beach somewhere you want to storm? I don't understand. I mean, if you want to
maybe Wall Street, we could storm Wall Street, but again, I would rather use nonviolent means.
If you want to defend your house, guess what? Shotgun probably is the best choice. Okay.
I can think of better choices like not having anything worth stealing works for me.
But I'm talking within the venue. We're in the venue of firearms.
Yeah.
You want a gun to defend your house? A shotgun. First of all, it doesn't have a lot of range. Second of all, you probably can't hit the broadside of the barn, the average person. So, and third of all, when you make that click, likely if someone's breaking into your house, when they hear that click being made, they'll likely break out of your house.
Right. Hey, Ron, I got to run. Next Tuesday, we're going to have more conversation about this issue, and you ought to consider tuning in. You've got some good thoughts to share on it, even if we don't agree entirely. Ron, thanks for the call.
We'll have to talk about what we don't agree, but okay.
All right. Well, not entirely, for the most part. All right, thanks for the call. Folks, I did say I want to mention the Branstad's policy on felons' ability to vote. Again, this was talk about racial policies. The whole approach to restricting ex-felons' right to vote started as a way to kind of, again, keep the black vote down. Governor Vilsack, to his credit, made it simple when felons get out of prison and pay their dues, they can vote again. Simple, just like that. Most states do that. Iowa is one of few states that now, again, don't do that because Governor Branstad, reinstated his former policy. You got states like Maine and Vermont that actually allow felons to vote while in prison. I think, to me, that's a better approach. Give them a chance to prove that they are constructive citizens. Anyway, Mark Smith, former president of the AFL-CIO, a guy I respect a lot, has a great letter to the editor on this subject today, reminding us that even though Branstad has actually come back a little bit more reasonably on this issue, he still is not where he should be on this. Mark points out that if any other citizen is behind in payments, for example, have not paid their child support or their car payment or credit card bill or house payment, they can still vote. So again, good point, Mark. Thank you for taking the time to make that point. There's the water quality issue. I'd love to get this fellow on my program, Mark Edwards from Boone, former DNR employee for 30 years, and it is just sickening him. He lives along the Des Moines River. has lived there for 40 years. He describes the continuing loss of water quality, the continuing decline of wildlife, and the continuing foolishness of pretending to believe that voluntary compliance with pollution control is at all going to work. I was happy to see his letter, even though it's very disturbing. I mean, his perspective on this is one we ought to be taking very seriously, not only living right along the Des Moines River and knowing how natural systems work, but working in the DNR for 30 years. At least we have the EPA saying at this point in today's paper as well that what's being proposed by state government is inadequate. Finally, maybe this requires a little more time, but there's a guy who is alleging, a Florida professor who apparently studied at the University of Iowa, alleging that the tragedy at Sandy Hook was a conspiracy. That is a bizarre thought. I don't often give conspiracy theories much time and attention. Maybe this one will be worth a little conversation. I need to study it a little bit further. So anyway, folks, I hope you'll again come to the Lawsuits Are No Laughing Matter comedy show this coming Sunday, 7 to 9 p.m. at the House of Bricks in the East Village. Tickets can be got from tickly.co, TIKLY.co, $10 a pop, $10 at the door as well. Should be a really wonderful evening. Lee Camp is headlining the event, and local comedians Dan Umtham, Scott Vermolm, and Colin Ryan. Also, Andy Fleming with Brother Trucker. Should be a heck of a time. Please come, folks, and I want to thank Fighting Burrito for sponsoring this segment of our show. Fighting Burrito is now in the Nationwide Building, 13th Street, just south of Locust, and you can get a great burrito for a very, very affordable price. They've got specialty burritos, but also make your own. That's the main attraction of Fighting Burrito. You can build your own burrito, and they are hearty. And I got a big appetite. I mean, I burn a lot of calories doing this, riding my bike, trying to keep Maddie in line. It keeps you busy. It burns a lot of calories. And I tell you what, Fighting Burrito's lunch burrito is enough to keep me going for at least 4 more hours. So, folks, check them out there at 13th and Locust. That's Fighting Burrito. Join the fight. And join Bradshaw at 1:30 today. Again, thanks to Webcast One Live for providing the studio for this. Thanks to my wonderful producer, Maddie Arrington. I'll be back Monday, folks, at same time, 12 noon on the Fallon Forum.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershot.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician.
From Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money-back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going, though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.